In August we set up our first no-dig garden bed and sowed our freshly pig-ploughed pastures with seed. Since then we've been busy planting, caring for and harvesting our first crops. This week we show you what we grew and cooked through the spring months, sharing with you our successes and the setbacks. But first, join us and our neighbour at the site of an old mill, where we harvest some wild asparagus.
So our neighbours invited us along it's an old site of a mill in a mill town, and what's been left behind is asparagus, isn't it? So yeah. We've come, we should be able to get a nice harvest today. That is really crisp and delicious.
Yep.
We should get a nice little harvest, something to take back with us, but we also might just take a few little crowns with us to go put in our garden and naturalise back there at the Ramshackle Ranch. Oh no, got your dibber.
Yep. Well, that's rubbish.
Okay. That's stained pine. Is it? Yeah. Nothing's any good anymore. Yeah.
Oh, I like to look like a hardwood.
Yeah.
That's probably 60 years old, that plant. You bet it.
Right.
Well, we could always divide it in two, do you think?
Yeah, well you could even go...
Pick a couple of...
See your corms here. If you just cut that out.
That individual bit?
That bit there is a corm.
Yep.
Same with that. Same as all of them.
Okay.
So it depends on what you want to do, whether you want to have a clump or...
Even that there. That's ready to roll.
Yeah, that's a corm. You can plant that, that'll take off.
Okay. I think once we get it home, run the hose over it and get some of the dirt out, we'll have a really good idea of it.
Yeah.
Then I'll get the ones that are obvious, and I might just get your advice later on.
I'll give you one.
It's a lot here. We've got lots of asparagus here, so you might have to get creative with some pickling and stuff, but I'm sure we'll get through a lot of it because we love asparagus and it's so delicious. It's way nicer than commercial asparagus. It's got a nice peppery flavour to it as well as that sweet asparagus flavour. So I'm a big fan and I'm looking forward to growing our own.
Cut that one through there.
Straight through there?
Yeah.
There's the end result under Don's watchful eye. We've split this up into a whole bunch of different little corms. So there's these growing tips, these little pyramids, they're ready to pop out. There's some, oh, this one's actually got a lot, so this will really take off. Some of these are a bit geriatric, like me. So, you know, that one's pretty past it. That's had all its asparagus grow and there's not much left, but here, that's the future. So there's a bit of energy in there, they should keep going. So now we're going to have to, it's fast forwarded our plans, we're going to have to make another bed. So we've decided of the 4 beds, the bed that's closest to the old oak tree, we're just going to make that a perennial bed. So right now we're going to go make up a bed for our asparagus, so that's a long-term project. And we've also got some Peruvian grand apple. I don't know if it's pronounced yakon or yason or whatever it is. If someone wants to help us out in the comments, you're welcome to. I don't know. But we've got Peruvian grand apple as well. So asparagus, grand apple. We're just gonna
maybe some Jerusalem artichokes for top.
Yeah. We'll have some really long-term stuff, and then we'll have 3 beds that are just annual high turnover beds. That should be enough for us and our families. Yeah, we should be able to bribe someone to do something with some asparagus sometime in the future. So that'd be good. So it's a pretty nice end to the day. We're going to plant our asparagus before. We don't want it to dry out too much. So we've gone and prepped the bed, cardboard, manure, compost. It's still pretty new compost, but it's not too bad. We've had success with the other beds, and you might be able to hear them being watered in the background. So what we want to do, Pasty, is on the top of these, you can see there's a little pointy pyramid that wants to grow up.
Yep.
And the roots on the bottom.
Yep.
So just clear it a bit and put it down in there, and then I'll dump some compost straight on top of it. Or build the bed and plant at the same time. Something that has been a nice feature and it's made our life easier is the dam on this property. It catches some surface flow, but really what happens is the water gets down to the clay layer and emerges out of the ground. The dam's built on that and it gets that subsurface water. It hasn't had to come down here into the stream to collect it. It hasn't dammed a natural waterway. It's just quite a high saddle dam. It's quite a bit higher than where we are now. So at the moment, this is pump assisted pressure, but we can run our irrigation down here without that pump, just when we only need like a small trickle. You know, if we only need something like that, we can actually get away with just the head pressure from the dam, which is really, really great. Like no moving parts, which is fantastic. But when we do need to apply quite a bit in a hurry, it is nice to be able to just throw that on, you know, knock out a few watts and get the water in there, particularly when night is descending, you know.
So we put the little tomato seedling plants that were in seed blocks into pots today. We're just going to let them grow into bigger plants before we plant them into the summer bed when the soil's a bit warmer. If you haven't seen what I was doing earlier, what I mean by soil blocks is these. So planting into beds and planting into pots, there's no transplant shock because you just plant them straight in and the roots can just grow out into the extra soil that we've added and the plant can grow bigger. So I'm enjoying using these. It's my first time and I think they're really great. We'll see how they go for the rest of the year. Under here is my little mini hothouse where my seed blocks are with little seedlings, mainly salad greens and various things that you can plant in springtime. More tomato plants in here, some beetroots that need to get into the ground really soon because they're a root veg and I don't really want to disrupt them too much. And lots of salad greens, so we're going to have lots of salad this spring and summer. Yeah, this is exciting. This will get planted out soon and then I will probably do some more seed blocks of peppers and maybe even more tomatoes, just so we have lots of peppers and tomatoes for preserving this summer. Here I am doing a simple lactic acid fermented asparagus. It's important to cut the asparagus to size to fit the jar, with plenty of headroom for the saltwater brine I will be adding. You don't want the asparagus to be exposed to air while fermenting. Packing all the spears in tightly like this stops them from floating to the top of the jar when you add the brine. I added some bay leaves and garlic cloves to the asparagus spears in the jar. The brine is made up of 3.5% non-iodised mineral salt, dissolved into rainwater from the farm. I left the asparagus to ferment for 5 days like this, before removing the cloth, adding a lid, and placed in the fridge to slow down the lactic acid bacteria from working on the asparagus. It's the middle of spring and time for our first harvest on the farm. Radishes are really rewarding to plant here, giving you vegetables in as little as 6 weeks despite the cold weather. Troy repurposed the broken pitchfork handle into this handy little dibber for me. It made into planting our cos lettuce soil blocks amongst the radish an easy affair.
Well, this old long-handled spade here, I'd like to use that. I don't want to nip down the shops, but it's look, it's had a bit of a hard life. We'll just see if we can extend the life of this thing, get a bit more use out of it. Later on, I might be able to shorten the handle, but at the moment, it's just the right height for me, so I don't want to shorten it. So I made this little tool. So it's basically a T-piece with a couple of holes in it. These are just old bolts that were laying around that I cut down. So a couple of holes through there, and a bit of steel with a point, and you might be able to just see a little fish mouth in there that fits some wire in it, and a hole, a 10.5mm hole that I'll 3/8 inch, if you like, hole that I'll just chuck that through. I'll show you just how it works because it's really easy to make, and they're quite handy for a range of different tasks. So there we go, that was pretty straightforward. It just relies on the little T-piece, as you saw, tensioning the wire, and then as you bend it over, it adds even more tension to the point where if we have a look at this, you can see that it's crushed into the wood quite nicely. You know, it's like really good tension. And if we just turn the shovel around here and we can have a look, it's a nice, neat, finished off job. It's a handy little thing to use. We'll go and have a look on one of the cut down IBC stillages that I made, and you can see that I used a tool just like this for making these wire finishing ties. They're very, very secure and they make a nice, neat job. Not only that, when your mates have a look at it, they won't be able to tell how you did it. So take half an hour out of your day. It's to make one of these things. It's nothing to it, you know. Like the hole just has to be as enough to fit the wire. Fit through there, spin it up, and it's a really good fix. There's not many other ways that you could use wire to fix the handle on a shovel like that. Even if you were twisting with pliers to get that tight, you wouldn't have a nice finish, you know, hand safe job at the end of it. And I don't know if you'd get it that tight.
The carrot seeds had been in the garden for roughly 4 weeks, and now they had sprouted, it was time to thin out the baby seedlings. I actually found it quite hard to let go of the baby plants, but knew that if we wanted a yield, nearly every second seedling needed to be removed. Next time I might be a bit more cautious when filling the drills, and try not to put so many seeds in them. With the radishes removed, you can really see how much our cos lettuce had grown in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, it's a white one. That's pretty cool, growing an alternative to having to buy barley.
Well, we'll see.
You likes it?
This is untreated seed.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Organic.
Yeah.
Well, not organic, but untreated.
Just untreated.
Oh, they like it.
No, that's great. Well, this is better not feed too much of the goat because this is our this is seed for planting. So this is some untreated buckwheat, and we're going to throw that in. We've just moved the pigs on from pretty much the final paddock that we're really going to work them through for this run. We're just going to harrow it again, and we're going to spread this seed through, and we're going to have this as our summer crop. A lot of it is for bee forage. We'll see what the local bees think. Some of it is for us, and quite a bit of it is for some animal feed in the future. But what we really want is a very, very fast growing crop with a good root system. Get those nutrients up, turn it into vegetable matter, and then we'll put the pigs back in there, and they can turn it in for us. We just want to get that vegetable matter back into the ground as quickly as possible. The other pastures that we've sown, they're looking really good, really, really great. Lots and lots of clover, so I know they're going to get lots of nitrogen put back in. The goats really like it at the moment. But we're just retiring the pigs to like the tree belts through the hottest season later on. And we want to just start actually growing a few things where they've been. So this is it, buckwheat.
We're trialling a new way with the enclosure for the larger brown chickens. Instead of having to take down the poles, we're just using a fork stick to hold up the fencing, and so far it's working pretty well.
So what would normally happen is we'd come and take down the corners or spread them apart. We'd unhook them and lay them down on the ground, and the chickens can freely come and go. So as Pasky said, what we've been doing now is just lifting one of the bits in the middle out of the ground, one of the posts out of the ground, and just putting it on a fork stick. It means that when we get the corners tension, we never really need to change that. So if anyone's out there and they're using these little nets, maybe you've already discovered that, but it is a really good way of, like, once you've got your setup, not to alter it very much. So I do tend to, like, I've got this one here on this side that you can see that the chook just came out of. There is another one on the other side. At the moment, what we've had is the chickens have liked to spread out. So they like the wood pile, but also this pasture is really coming back well, and you can see the goats in the background enjoying it. So some of the chooks like to go and get pasture, and some of the chooks like to hunt in the wood pile. So I have found a time when the chooks come back and they've been pacing up and down outside the net, trying to figure out how to get back in. They're not that bright, but they're very lovable. So. Well, as things warm up, we're starting to get flying ants. The new queens are starting to leave the nest, so I reckon there'll be some good rain coming in the next 24 hours. It's not really forecast to be that much rain, but the bugs never really lie. Oh, chook jumping around behind me. So all the you can see here that if you look on these logs that we've put aside to dry, wherever those little termite queens land, the chooks have been having quite a nice feed on them. So this is the first time they've ever come into this paddock and jumped up on the logs. They seem to like it. So happily this young pumpkin plant has avoided the goats, whereas the shoots coming off our the blue gum saplings that we coppiced before, the goats have been actually really getting into that. You would think that they would prefer to eat pumpkin, but no. The growing shoots of eucalyptus. Those goats will eat anything. Well, here I am with my friend Hugo. I've sat still long enough, which means I have to be climbed. So, the paddock has really greened up. Like it's done so well. The pigs cleared all the onion weed away, and you know what? We haven't had any regrowth, like none. So the pasture has competed really well with it. The goats are spending an enormous amount of time in here at the moment. You can see Jude in the background. I think they're getting a lot of protein out of this stuff at the moment. It's grown really rapidly, and the rye at least is going to seed. I can see in the other paddock that's a little bit older, the clover is starting to flower and drop seed as well. So I think the goats select this just because it's a little bit younger than the other one. It's probably higher in protein. Well, there we go, a quick look at the weather forecasts. They were saying very small chance of rain today, but you know, we saw those flying ants out and the chickens and everyone were enjoying it. It was a little bit muggy, and they know, so it's pretty infallible. You know, when the termites around here start releasing their queens and the ants, and there's lots of flying insects, it always means rain the next day, just about always. I was hoping that the insects were going to be wrong and the weatherman was right, but it's never the case. What? Oh, we'll wait for it to pass and I can get back to work, but I might just have a go slow in the shed now. Wild tricks.
Good for the garden. Warm soil, lots of rain.
This cat's trying to tell me something. Would you like some affection? Is that what you're after? Oh yeah, that's it. Whenever we have a little bit of time not working, all the animals sort of just like think that that's time to give them attention rather than the property, isn't it? How you going with that bell? Mucking at your chi a bit, isn't it?
The garden's looking mostly good. The silver beet's doing really well, and like all our lettuces are doing really great. There's one thing that's plaguing the bed, and that's something that's really getting into our brassicas. It's a little tiny caterpillar. So I think there's some moths about that have been laying their eggs on here, and these little caterpillars are they're quite damaging the plant actually. They're eating all the new growth, and everything's really struggling. So we're going to try a bacterial spray which the little caterpillars ingest in their stomachs, and it's supposed to kill them. It's called Dripple. I think it's called Dripple. Yeah, so I'll give that a go and see what happens. So you can see on the Komatsuna here, there's lots of little caterpillars tucking into the leaf. Also that tatsoi, the leaves are really damaged all around the edge. The poor old cauliflower is having a hard run of it. Perhaps it's going to be better to plant brassicas in the autumn, in the fall, but I just wanted to see how they went in springtime. Maybe it's better to just have root vegetables and leafy greens in spring, but it's all an experiment, so yeah, we'll see how we go. Unfortunately, I planted out a lot of corn about 5 weeks ago when it was really warm, and only one little plant survived because I suspect it was the crows came and dug up all of the kernels as they were sprouting, which is very sad. So Troy has actually built this for us. Pretty rustic, pretty janky, but it's going to do the trick I think. So we'll plant it out we'll do a whole block of 3 rows. We'll just plant staggered, so we'll just do 1 row at a time, let them sprout and be a proper plant, and then do the next lot. Hopefully that works. And then when we come to harvest, we won't have like all the corn ready at the same time, in theory.
I just cobbled this together out of pine that my brother-in-law got from a demo job, and we've been making shelves and all sorts of different stuff out of. It's not treated pine, but I don't really care if it it's just in the garden. If it rots away eventually, that's fine. We should get some use out of it. Use that. Got a bit of fencing wire, just made a couple of hoops, and then we just had some of this scrap chicken wire. All it needs to do is just stop the crows getting in there, and digging up Pasky's corn.
So these are some French breakfast radishes. The tops don't look amazing, and I can see why. There's these little caterpillars that we've had on all our brassicas, just that have eaten the tops. But the roots seem to have done okay despite the caterpillars eating the leaf. So I'm gonna pull them up. Like, look at this one. That's a beautiful one. Nice and pink, pretty.
Are we going to eat them fresh? Are you going to ferment them, Pasky?
I think we'll eat these ones fresh. French breakfast radishes are quite delicious. I think if they're a bit too spicy, then we'll ferment them, because sometimes they can be quite hot. I mean, radishes were just to put something in the bed at the start of spring because they're all right in the cold, and yeah, I mean, we really just were waiting for the bed to sort of settle a bit because we put all that manure on the bottom. And radishes, so you can see they don't go very far with their roots. They just got in the that top layer of compost. So quite a good crop to plant.
I think radishes you can recommend to any new gardener because
they're really satisfying.
They're really rewarding.
Yeah.
So it's quite amazing the difference between the brassicas, as Pasky was saying,
But then these are cos lettuce.
They're healthy and happy.
Yeah, and I always sort of envisaged that brassicas were hardier than lettuce, but all the lettuce in our area is doing amazing. Again, we can see brassicas in amongst the lettuce, and they're really copping it from these insect pests, whereas everything else is showing just like really good vigour. Well, it didn't really take too many weeks to get to this point, and I mean, the garden looks quite pretty at the moment. It's not, it's not like super abundant, you might think. And part of the reason is we've been eating fresh garden salad just about every night out of this garden, even at this small stage. Passy can come out down here. And these plants don't look that impressive. They're not huge. But what is impressive is she's been able to get like a fairly decent basket most nights, and we'll have a nice tossed garden salad. And the garden hasn't really skipped a beat. So we've been able to feed ourselves just as it grows along, just on a pick and come again basis. So we haven't really sown seeds for a big final harvest. We've been coming along and just very judiciously like peeling leaves off from the base.
Yeah, so all of this looks really, really amazing. These are these beautiful mignonette lettuces that grow really nicely here. I'm quite excited about radicchio as well. I really love radicchio, particularly like cut in halves or quarters and fried in butter. Very delicious. And the beetroots are doing well as well, which is exciting. Yeah, looking forward to those too. Okay, I called it dripple before I actually meant dipple. Yeah, bio-insecticide spray. It's organic, natural. The bugs, the caterpillars ingest it, and then it kills them when it gets to their gut. So I've put 1 gram into this spray bottle. I'm going to fill it up with 1 litre of water. It's 1 gram per litre. That's really easy. I'm going to put it on these affected brassica plants. Alright, ongoing saga with the sweet corn. I came to check on it today, and again I found perfect little excavation holes. So something is getting in here right under the wood and just digging up the corn. So I suspect it's a little mouse or a native marsupial. So we're going to use, well, I'm going to use this, which is like it's called a better mousetrap. It's a humane mousetrap. It's going to catch whatever little critters in there eating the corn alive. So I'm going to put some peanut butter inside, pop it in there and see if the mouse comes out tonight to get the rest of the corn, because it hasn't taken all of the corn. It's taken, oh, there'd be like at least 4 or 5 kernels still in the soil here. The mouse will go in through that little yellow gate there and crawl to the food at the back. And that should slam it shut. The weight of the mouse at the end of the trap should slam that door shut, and we'll have whatever creatures eating the corn inside. We'll see how it goes.
Close your eyes, hear the voice within, calling this heavy load got under your skin. Darling, you got the white knuckles holding on it tight, keeping your feet bottled up inside, heading for collision, and then now to really live you got
perfect.
Breathe in, breathe out. Hey, come alive. Breathe in, breathe out. Look at the colors, colors, colors. Right. Moments pass, make this one count. Untied, you're so good at dragging yourself down. Why? Well, there ain't much time left to figure
Okay, so this is the first bed that we planted at the very start of spring, and we've already been getting quite a lot of harvest from it. These leaves here, I've been pulling them back and picking them daily. We've had plenty of salad. We've been giving away lots of salad to our family, which is what we wanted. It's been really rewarding growing lettuce. It's definitely tastier than it is from the supermarket, and at the moment with inflation and difficulties with expenses for freight and things like that, fuel costs going up, it's so much cheaper to grow your own lettuce. At the moment, a couple of heads of lettuce is going for $6 in the supermarket. What's really exciting is that we've got a lovely full row of carrots here. We've also been pulling out and thinning those out and been eating baby carrots for the last couple of weeks. The damage was already done to those plants that had been attacked by the caterpillars, so I pulled them out and fed them to the goats. Some of the tatsoi did make it through. Perhaps the dripper worked after a couple of weeks, and now it has started flowering for summer. This is our second crop from this little section of this row. We had a whole heap of radishes in here and they performed really, really well. And then we planted little tiny cos seedlings about 5-6 weeks ago, and they're really exploding now. There's actually multiple plants that were in the seed block when I planted them out. They're very, very small and it was hard to separate them, but it's kind of turned out all right. What I'm going to do now is we're going to see my family shortly, and I might thin out some of these. So I want it to be that there's just one big cos growing in this spot. I've already interplanted actually some more radishes in here. I kind of just gave it a go. It is a brassica, and I have noticed that there's some caterpillar damage on them. There's also some spring onions all planted in here too. So really trying to make the most of each spot and interplant. It seems to be working really well. I'm really pleased. And cutting it right at the base. Cut this one off. I still haven't caught anything with the mousetrap. I think the creature got all the kernels as none of my seeds sprouted in the covered bed. As an alternative to direct sowing, I decided to sow corn kernels into blocks and then plant the sprouted seedlings into these small pots. Once the plants are better established, I will put them into the garden. Hopefully then they will be big enough not to be vandalised by the creature. The rainbow chard is just all of a sudden just gone crazy. It was teeny tiny little leaves like this chard over here, and now whew, it's exploded. So I'm going to cut a whole lot of this back to have with our family, probably for breakfast tomorrow with eggs and feta. I'm not cutting it right back at the base and replanting because I think I'm going to be able to get this rainbow chard for a long time. Hopefully we can keep it running until, I don't know, until it goes to seed, I suppose. I went pretty hard and trimmed a whole lot of the bigger leaves back. I actually found that I can also find the bigger leaves kind of break off as well down at the stem, so you don't actually need to use a knife if you're scared about cutting the new growth. The asparagus corm set in and grew shoots that we have left to go to seed to get established for next spring. So that's a harvest for my family from our spring garden. It doesn't really look like we've hit it up very hard, except for the rainbow chard, but we're gonna eat. There's 7 of us, so we'll eat it all and it'll grow back really quick. I will check in a couple of weeks and we'll show you how much it's grown. Thanks for watching this week. If you are new here, thanks also for subscribing. It really helps to get our channel out to like-minded audiences. We look forward to sharing with you the progress of our newly built and planted summer beds soon. See you next week.